Our speakers have arrived. We are just in time. Uh, I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Sitaram, and I also welcome Dr. Pia and my own colleague, Dr. Sneha, to lead this today's discussion, a very important discussion on accountability. Now, accountability is a bit of, for many people, it's a bit vague. It also questions our own conscience. You mean to say we are not accountable? As municipality, we are accountable, as I said. How can you say that we are not accountable? So these questions pop up. So what do we mean by accountability, and why it is important to strengthen accountability in the context of city sanitation planning, or in the context of citywide inclusive sanitation, is what is the topic for discussion. So we will have three presentations, some examples, some case studies, and then we will have floor open for discussion. So before I invite Dr. Sitaram, I would just set a bit of context for Dr. Sitaram and other speakers to pick up. Now, one of my colleague who was to join but he couldn't join, who has done a good work, and he has sort of facilitated earlier conversation. I'm using, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us, Mr. Anand Madhavan, and he couldn't join, so I'm sort of speaking on our behalf to outline what do we mean by strengthening accountability in the context of citywide inclusive sanitation. So this is a citywide inclusive sanitation framework which all of you have been exposed. And when we placed this framework in some of our cities, and this is primarily coming from the city where we work, Warangal, and we did an assessment of this citywide inclusive sanitation in the context of Warangal, we found two weak links. One is about accountability, second is a sustainability. That's why it is marked in sort of a red category. We wanted to strengthen it. Now it is in that context. What do we mean by strengthening accountability? So whose accountability are we speaking of? Is it the municipal accountability, or is it the citizens' accountability? So this conversation today is about strengthening accountability in sanitation, and why is it challenging? We will be questioning some of these points, and our speakers will also clarify. Now, why do we need to look at accountability in the context of sanitation? Just to summarize, as we discussed earlier, sanitation cuts across multiple departments, multiple institutions. For example, if it is to do with containment, regulating the containment, that is septic tank, it is typically the town planning. If it is a public toilet construction, it is engineering. If it is desludging, it is a typical health department. If it is used water management, then you have public health engineering departments. So there is a diffusion of responsibility within the urban local body Paurushavas and local governments, multiplicity of agencies, because sanitation cuts across different domains. Hence, there is a potential diffusion of responsibility, lack of clarity. And that is one of the reasons why sanitation often fails, because nobody is responsible for it. Likewise, citizen also has a burden in this, or a citizen also has a stake. For example, the civic responsibility, civic ownership in terms of construction, periodic desludging, the behavior issues, all of them is a role of the citizen. And the governments also have a critical role, the state or the national government, in terms of budgets. The budget will also come from the private initiatives, like an individual has to invest in improving the public conveniences, or their own toilets. So there are multiple agencies, multiple actors in this whole sanitation business. It is not a linear thing. Hence, there is a failure of accountability. If all of them are not doing their job properly, then there is a potential failure in the medium to long run. And that is where we need to strengthen the responsibility, and responsible entities have to be accountable to perform their job. How the money is spent, how the powers are exercised, how inputs are getting translated to outputs. And that is what is a public service accountability is about. Public service accountability is about ensuring the mandates are properly fulfilled, and with data we monitor it. Now, public service accountability is not about introducing policy, introducing our budgetary allocations, or introducing a monitoring system, or creating an institution for service delivery. Public service accountability is making sure that policies are actually working well, finances are well spent, and the monitoring is done properly, and then the feedback is used for improving the service delivery. So the accountability mechanisms are about not devising policies, but making sure the policies and financing and monitoring are working very well. Now, just to give you some examples. For example, how do you make sure the policy works well? How do you make sure that, how do we enhance accountability in the context of policy mandate and regulation? What do we do? What we do, we disclose information on website. We publish information about how we are performing. And sometimes we have an independent regulator, like in the case of Africa, like in the case of Philippines, like in the case of Malaysia. They have an independent water and sanitation regulators to monitor the performance of how the policies and regulations are implemented. These are called accountability tools. These are accountability methods that to improve the performance of public service delivery. Let me also give you examples of some more tools. How do you make sure that the governance is working very well? The decentralized governance is working well. How do you make sure that citizen charter, that city says that I will deliver these services, there is a mandate, I will provide you tap connection within 1 week, I will desludge your facility every 3 years, I will make sure that every 100 meters or 500 meters there's a public toilet in place, gender segregated toilets are in place. How do you make sure that the charter, the citizen charter is working well? How do you make sure that they are effective? So the social audit mechanisms, citizen feedback mechanisms, or citizen report card are some of the tools used for monitoring, ensuring that the mandate is complied or achieved. These are called accountability tools. Participatory budgeting is another method to ensure that the money is well spent. So the budgets, municipal budgets, how do I know that it is well spent? So some of the countries, some of the cities, what they introduced is called participatory budgeting, where citizen groups participate in the municipal budget planning process. Brazil is a good example of participatory budgeting process. Even some of the cities in India, they do, like in there is a NGO called Janagraha who facilitates participatory budgeting process at the municipal level, at the ward level, so that the money is well spent and citizens get a feeling that the money is rightly used for service delivery improvement. So these are some of the tools that are often exercised to improve the accountability. As I said, some of the tools that often cities use is called citizen report card, participatory budgeting, disclosure, community management in public conveniences. So these are some of the tools are often used. This is just to set the context. Now I will invite our speakers to, using this context, share their experiences of how accountability should be strengthened and how it is done in different countries or cities or context situation, and your own observations for our practitioners, what tools and what methods they can use. And I start with Dr. Sitaram.
Sorry, sir. Next is Dr. Ferry. We have
Oh, Dr. Perry. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry.
Started Dr. Perry. Yeah. I'm sorry about it. Hello. Dr. Pia, are you there?
You're calling me. Sorry, I couldn't understand my name. So,
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think there was a bit of sequence problem, so I'm sorry about it. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to invite me to this program. I mean, I heard about it, and it's very exciting for me to be part of it. So I'm going to give you the example of accountability mechanisms for sanitation in Japan, and particularly for the on-site sanitation systems here in Japan. So first of all, my name is Pierre Flamand. I'm not Japanese by birth. I'm from France. I came in Japan about 22 years ago. I was first involved in education, and then I moved to sanitation for different reasons. I think coming from a different country, it's interesting because you can have how can I say, an outside view of how sanitation is managed here in Japan. So now I'm part of the Japan Sanitation Consortium. So what is the Japan Sanitation Consortium? This was a consortium launched in 2009 at the request of the Asian Development Bank, because it was found that actually there were countries in the Asia-Pacific region with good knowledge and good practices for sanitation, like Japan or Korea, or for example, Indonesia, Australia, New Zealand, but that the knowledge was not shared among the different countries of the region. So that's where JSC was established. So the idea is to use, the expertise of Japan or the experience of Japan in sanitation, but also some good practices and other success stories from other countries in the Asia-Pacific region. So this is what looked at the time the knowledge hubs. I'm not sure knowledge hubs are part of the Asia-Pacific Water Forum. So we collaborate with different agencies such as ATP or JICA, and of course the Asian Development Bank Institute. So here we have 3 organizations which are, and this is not typical in Japan. This is very original, I think, because in Japan, like in many countries, sanitation is shared between different ministries. So, for example, in Japan, the sewage system is in the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport, and Tourism. So we have 3 organizations that are involved in the sewage system, and 2 organizations for on-site sanitation systems, which are part of the Ministry of the Environment in Japan. So actually, joining those forces is an original initiative in Japan. So this is for JSC. This is what I'm going to talk about today in my presentation. So first of all, the common management issues we have with on-site sanitation systems. So we all know that any wastewater treatment system requires regular maintenance to function properly, and also to function at the best level of performance, but also for long-term use. On-site sanitation facilities need a management system which is called the fecal sludge management. We all know that. However, unlike most sewage systems, the management of on-site sanitation system is in many cases not conducted by professional service providers, but at the discretion of private owners. Often, on-site sanitation systems are private properties, so maintenance is done at the will of the owner. Owner usually they do not know how to operate the on-site sanitation system, and more critically have low willingness and affordability to pay for the operation maintenance services. Such context in the absence of institutionalized and regulated management system result in poor practices. So in the case of Japan, sanitation is globally considered as a public good, which serves the best interests of society at large. And of course, on-site sanitation is no different. So on-site sanitation is a public matter that has been taken in hand by the public sector, which has established a solid and sustainable environment with legal, institutional, regulatory, and financial mechanisms in which the private sector play an important role. I'm going to show that later. Well, I don't know why I have that, but anyway. Sorry, I don't know why I have this story, but it's okay, may I push the wrong button. So just to go back to what was Japan at the time, Japan sanitation is well managed now in Japan, but it has not been always the case. For example, in the 1960s, late 1950s, with urbanization and economic growth, there were many people were going into cities. And this resulted in a problem with human waste management. So you can see on the right-hand side picture on the top the problem of pollution in rivers. You had also the problems that traditionally in Japan, night soil, what we call night soil, it was human waste collected at night. There was a recycling system with farmers in Japan, but this system broke down after World War II because of the arrival of chemical fertilizers. So actually, the problem was how to manage all this human waste, and there was no proper solution. So you can see in the mid-1960s that the sewage coverage in Japan was quite low, less than 10% in the early 1960s. So the main sanitation system at the time was vault toilets with night soil storage tank, what we call the night soil collection system. So only Jokaso was starting. Jokaso was, I'm going to show what is a Jokaso, but it only started at the time. So the enabling environment was to strengthen the legal system in Japan. So there was a big pollution session at the Diet in the 1970s. So basically, there was a lot of pollution from industrial sources because the country was, economically growing. That's why, there were about 14 laws that were established during the pollution session at the Diet in 1970. And it was decided that the sewage system would be growing. I mean, there would be a big effort to grow to diffuse the sewage system in Japan, not only in large cities, but also in medium and low-sized cities. But another major law for what we are interested about today was the Jokaso Act. So the law for managing the on-site sanitation system in Japan, which was enacted in 1983. So this is how it looks now, the image of the wastewater treatment systems now in Japan. So in low density district, basically you have small scale Jokaso. So I'm going to show you what is Jokaso. So on-site sanitation systems. In medium density district, you have small sewage system, what we call the rural sewage system. And in high density district, you have the sewage system. So basically the sewage system is the main system used in Japan, but the Jokaso system is not, so the on-site sanitation system is not going to decrease because, we have a population decrease now in Japan, especially in medium-sized cities. So basically in many cities, the planning is revised and the sewage system is not going to grow by much. So this is how it looks, how it does look at Jokaso. This is a small, aerobic wastewater treatment system used for individual households, but not only. It can go from five people population equivalent to 500. So, but most of the systems are small systems. So in terms of legal arrangement, we have the Jokaso Act, what I mentioned before. So also what I wanted to mention for the Jokaso, so the level of treatment for wastewater treatment is the same level as the sewage system. So basically when you choose in Japan a system, you know that you will achieve the same level of treatment performance. So we have here, so the JOCASO, this is the JOCASO Act that has been established enacted in 1983 and enforced in 1985. So this is a different article of the law. So it's related to installation, operation, and maintenance, the different type of JOCASO approval. The businesses, it also regulates the businesses. It also regulates the JOCASO technicians, the people who are going to do the management, and you have also an article for penalties. So this is the creation of the JOCASO Act. So why a law was created in 1983? Basically, after World War II, so I explained that there was a big economic growth in Japan. So there was a house booming in the country. And the first JOCASO that were installed at the time were treating only black water. But they were manufactured they were manufactured, so they were it was FRP manufactured facilities, and they were very not too expensive, and actually they were installed all over Japan. The problem was that the maintenance at the time was varied greatly from one area to another, so there was really a need to establish to create a law to really improve the maintenance and make the maintenance operation in a standardized way. So this is the creation of the law in 1983. So each type of JOCASO with new treatment process has to be tested and certified by an independent agency. The JOCASO Act provides a clear mandate and clarity of the responsibilities and duties of the person and organization involved in JOCASO installation and maintenance, and also designate the institution in charge of certification. So this is in detail what the JOCASO Act regulates. So a national certification system for JOCASO installation workers and the operators conducting maintenance, inspection and repairs. The establishment of the registration system for JOCASO installation businesses. Establishment of the registration system for the vendors conducting operation and maintenance. So the vendors are the companies. The monitoring of installed facilities and their operation and maintenance by designated third-party inspection agencies. And we have also the penalties. So this is about, I mentioned about the management, the problem of management, but here we have also standardization. So this is also regulated by law. So ensuring the product quality through some standardization. So as I mentioned, each new type of JOCASO has to be tested for 1 year because it goes through the whole season, the different seasons. So from the design, the idea is also to facilitate maintenance of operations, to make them as short as possible, so that the private sector, which is engaged in operation and maintenance, can visit many facilities during that day and make sufficient profit. So usually maintenance inspection take no more than 20 minutes. And the third-party monitoring, which is important. So this is a third-party agency that is going to be monitoring what has done the maintenance organization. So the JOCASO Act is actually, so this is two main articles of the law. Oh, sorry. So we have, first of all, in terms of legal inspection by the third-party agency, after installation, so 3 to 8 months after starting of operation, the JOCASO is monitored to make sure that it's effluent comply with the law. Then you have operation maintenance done with scheduled desludging and regular maintenance inspection. So over 3 times a year, you have maintenance inspection. So to check the level of sludge or water quality and to replenish, for example, the disinfectant. You have desludging once a year for small-scale JOCASO, for example, 5 population equivalent. And then once a year, you have another legal inspection, which is to check that the desludging is okay, and also that the water quality is done. So there is a visual inspection. And I don't know if you can see here, but this is a very profitable business. You have many people involved, and this is local, work for local economies. So this is a very profitable business for the local sector in Japan and for the private sector. So this is what looks like a maintenance inspection sheet, you know, for when companies go to check the JOKASO. So they have this is a translation I provided for the sheet they do. So of course this is provided to the JOKASO owner. So this is to show you that the private sector, this is for desludging operation, the companies, how the business is done here in Japan. And you can see that most of the desludging in Japan is done by the private sector. So you have different type of desludging organization, but most of it is done by the private sector. So this is what we could call the public-private partnership in some way. So now, because we are talking about accountability mechanisms, we have also to consider the cultural factor. So of course, in Japan, you know, different countries will react differently to the rules and to the set of rules that have been established by the country. So we can say that in Japan, there is generally obedience towards rules, but also high quality service expectation, which means people are not afraid to complain if the service is not up to a certain level of quality. It's true that Japan, this is mostly a society that is working, you know, with the groups. So individuals usually are not favored, but so this is B and have the same as the group. So if, for example, in a community, you know, people have good toilets, I think it can be a good incentive. So an important attention to cleanliness and hygiene. I think for all the people who have visited Japan, you can see that the public toilets are very clean. It has not always been the case. I think this is something that is also related to a modern country or a country that want to show that it is modern. But now the generation, as the actual generation, is really about cleanliness and hygiene. You can see also during the COVID-19, you know, everyone here, even before the virus, you know, spread, people were wearing masks often, you know, even before COVID-19, people used to wear masks as well. So I mentioned in the JOKASO Act that we have an article about, you know, penalties, but usually in Japan, it's really more reminding and guiding rather than punishing, and it's working here. So for example, if you don't do the maintenance, if people don't do the maintenance of the JOKASO, they will be reminded by letter or by communication. You know, the third-party agencies, they will come and see the JOKASO owner and they will explain why he needs to do the maintenance. And also the importance of education to create good, you know, sanitary habits and make people understand that having good sanitation comes at a cost. So usually education is providing in primary school, you know, 4th grade, and people of, for example, children of 10 years of age. So there is part of their curriculum, school curriculum includes, you know, a part about education on sanitation, solid waste, you know, and water supply, for example, this kind of thing. So now the institutional capacity. So in terms of on-site systems, so the JOKASO system and night soil treatment facilities are usually are the facilities that are in which the sludge from JOKASO is treated. So they are under the, so here it can be individual because JOKASO are often privately owned, but it can be also owned by municipalities. Nice soil treatment facilities or sludge treatment facilities, I can say, are usually managed by municipalities. And this is under the umbrella of the Ministry of the Environment.
Sorry, sir, to interrupt. So, due to time constraint, can we quickly complete this?
Okay, I'm already on my 20 minutes. I'm sorry. So this is also in terms of institutional capacity. You know, this is in the Ministry of the Environment. You have a special office for promotion of JOKASO, which is, I think, also not very common. So for the desludging company, something that is important. So the permission is given by the municipal mayor, and I think what is very important that in the commissioning standard, it says that companies must have a sufficiently wide area for desludging so that they are not in competition with other companies and they can make sufficient money. So this is important for desludging. So sufficient profit for desludging companies. So this is the institutional institutions that are doing the training for the JOCASO maintenance operators, so the Japan Education Center of Environmental Sanitation. And you have also the Japan Environmental Sanitation Center that is doing the same thing for training and certifying the people who are working in the sludge treatment plants. So in terms of data access and transparency, you have a website operated by the Ministry of the Environment, which provides a lot of information about the JOCASO systems that people can access very easily, which gives all these informations. You have also the same, each municipality also provide information on the JOCASO and what people need to do for maintenance, for example, for the subsidies they can get, for example. So this is also provided by municipalities. This is easily accessible by people. And although the JOCASO is mostly privately owned, you know, you have a subsidy program for installation. So you have two programs. You have the JOCASO installation program. So usually people pay 60% of the cost of the JOCASO, and then the rest is provided by the government, local government, central government. And you have also another municipal program, which is a municipal JOCASO installation program, which is people only pay 10% of the cost of the installation, and then they pay a fee exactly similar to the sewage system. So basically, maintenance will be done by the municipality exactly as it is done by for the sewage system. And for the first programming year, people have to do the maintenance and comply with the law. Usually, those people they are asked to contract with a company doing the maintenance because it's too complicated for private owners to do the maintenance by themselves. In some cases, you have also subsidies for operation and maintenance. This is an example of cities in Japan that are providing or have provided, you know, incentive for subsidies for operation and maintenance. So it's not only about installation, but in some cases also to make sure that the people do the right thing for maintenance. Okay, so this is my two final slides. So for on-site sanitation in Japan, accountability translates into clear public mandate to plan, manage, and deliver safe, equitable, and sustainable sanitation services for all citizens. We have a robust and comprehensive legal and regulatory system. Data transparency, I mentioned about the websites. Legal inspection by third-party organizations that are chosen by the prefecture. Subsidy system to promote on-site sanitation system construction, so and also good management and maintenance. Public-private partnership for operation maintenance. Sorry. People's participation in greater civil engagement. Targets and monitoring framework in place. And training and certificate system for human resource development. And use of diverse technical solution tailored to local context. So between the sewage system and the on-site sanitation system. So what is accountability is the main point. So it's to make sanitation a public mandate, communicated and monitored for proper implementation. So in the case of Japan, there is explicit communication through regulations, monitoring, third-party inspection, and transparent subsidy mechanisms. Have a clear framework for setting and monitoring targets. So we have the law in place for that. Use the private sector for maintenance activities, but under a well-defined environment, monitored by third-party agencies. Often we hear about public-private partnership, but usually it's really the public that gives everything to the private sector, but the private sector wants to make money. So if there is no proper environment, maybe the private sector will not do the right thing. For example, dumping the sludge in the open, you know, to reduce the cost for transport, for example. Involve citizens' participation through website, information sharing, and people can complain, you know, at local level if there is any problem or provide feedback. Establish tools for institutional capacity buildings. And the last slide is, because we were talking about including city-level services, this is ideas, but it's a bit not related directly to this presentation, so I will skip it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fleming. So friends, the important point to be noted is, like all of us, Japan also have regulatory framework. But what is important for the takeaway for us is how these regulations and the policy mandates are translated into a credible implementable model. Now, that's very important to note. Now, there are cultural factors to abide with the regulations. There's definitely some of the cultures are more prone to abiding rules and regulations. But equally important from Dr. Flement's presentation is that they have built in certain tools, third-party inspection as a tool, standardization of the containment system as a tool, certification of the containment system as a tool, data transparency as a mechanism. These are all the methods that have been put in place to strengthen the implementation of the regulations and make the system much more accountable. We will take up some questions as we progress, but before I do that, I would now invite Dr. Sitaram from ADBI to share his views and experiences. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. First of all, let me congratulate all the participants for coming this far into this course. This is one of the ambitious programs going close to 10 weeks and several hours each week outside office hours, intentionally designed like that. And this is the 5th cohort. So I'm very happy that we started this course and we have come to close to the closing of this. I met many of you in the early part of the course where we talked about the Dumaguete example to provoke you to think out of the box. Now, this is a celebratory occasion, so I'm also featuring something which Professor Chari introduced in his introductory comments. So this slide is showing the new book that actually was just completed today. It was a very nice coincidence a few hours ago. So that's the first chapter in that book is what he presented together with Anand Madhavan. It's called the PRISM concept, PRISM, to shape the accountability mechanism of sanitation. Then later, my colleague, Dr. Pierre Flement, he's also one of the authors in this book. He presented very elegantly about Japan's experience, and we have analyzed that. I have chosen 2 chapters in this from this book to share with you today, but as time is so limited, I don't want to take away time from Dr. Snehalata's presentation. So I will make it very, very brief because I want to really answer your questions. So what we have done in this is really go back to the missing piece in sanitation. It is not about financing. It is not about punishing people. It is about looking at a new business opportunity. But to have a new business opportunity, we need to understand why it will work. So accountability is about improving the resource utilization. It's about having a check on the powers of the people who are responsible for delivering the service. It's about winning the public trust by being transparent about the quality of service, about the availability of service. We all have this in many of the services that we have as public service. A classic example in many of the South Asian countries who are here today is what we have right now, and we're using that for this webinar, internet technology, right? It is delivered 24/7, reliable, and you pay for what you want to pay for and you accept it. Sanitation also can be delivered like that. And that is the example that we are talking about. So we need to see some benefits, right? That means you pay for the performance and then you get the real benefit of the service delivery. It's like how we enjoy having the internet and mobile phone access, water, sanitation. These public services need to be satisfying to us. It's not that we get something which is what somebody else thinks should be given to this person. No, everyone should demand and should be satisfied. Then it's important to run them like a company. Although it may be delivered by the government, it needs to be successful. That means financially sustainable, maybe profitable, so that you can prepare for the future, prepare for difficult situations. So all of this have to be measured and performed in a way that it's transparent and it's consistent, particularly across terms of government officers, across terms of political leaders. But I'm not going to give you a lecture of nice things to do. We know what are the challenges. Particularly, sanitation sector has some unique challenges, particularly in Asian countries, or more specifically, like in South Asia. We have some social taboos about sanitation and so on. So we need to overcome that. And that's why we shared some good practice example. So the example of Japan is very interesting. In Japan, there are lots of, if you go in the internet and check, many company CEOs claim that they're very successful because the everyday morning ritual that they do is to clean their toilets. It's like God to clean toilet. Many big companies, the first training for the managerial staff is to learn to wash toilets and clean toilet. It's not seen as a a meager or a work that is not respectful. So there are some social taboos. I'm not saying we have to follow that. What I'm saying is that there is a different understanding. So they have made it into an enterprise. And you saw the example of Japan. Now, the recommendation that I'm giving you is based on another country, because we always say, oh, developed country does it well. This is another country which is close or similar in culture or multicultural. Indonesia's case study is very compelling. In the other example, I brought the Philippine case study. This is Indonesia's case study. So how do we improve the accountability mechanism for sanitation? There are 6 messages. We only can monitor and improve what we measure. So we need to measure things, and we need to be transparent. That means what we report, somebody should be able to verify. And then we need to decentralize the mechanism so that when there is a troubleshooting, somebody at the lowest level can take the decisions to make changes, and there is funding available. The next example is that in all public services, we don't use that word. So accountability is not a euphemistic mechanism. It is to be point blank in it that there's a systemic issue of poor governance. In international jargon, it is called corruption, basically. That means there is a public responsibility, money is allocated, but there is no way to check the money was actually spent for the intended purpose. Now we need to overcome that. And we have overcome it in many other public services. As I shared, the example of telecom services, internet services is a good example. And we have other examples like that, where people have overcome that initial image and we have reformed the sector. And we need to move on in that way. So we need a corporate type governance model so that performance is rewarded. At the same time, the people who have accountability also have the autonomy to make the decisions. And sanitation is a very tough subject to crack. So centralizing it is not the way. On the contrary, decentralizing. Decentralizing in terms of service delivery, but also decentralizing in terms of budget, decentralizing in terms of quality of service. So these are all embedded in the city-wise inclusive sanitation. And you have picked up many of these in the course that you have gone through this time. So let me stop here. And I hope that you got the gist of what is in that book. The book will be soon available for free download for all of you. And I'm very happy to stay on in this today's session and respond to any questions or comments. Back to
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sitaram. So presentations of Dr. Fleming and Dr. Sitaram gave you a clear understanding that if you want to make citywide inclusive sanitation workable and sustainable in the long run, as we have seen in the case of Japan, we need to find mechanisms to strengthen the accountability, one of the recommendations coming out. And Dr. Sitaram's presentation gave a series of set of recommendations, very practical recommendations. Decentralization is one model. Data transparency is another. And he has given the various tools through the presentation of Dr. Flement. The book is going to give you a lot of tools, how to deal with corruption, how to deal with strengthening accountability, what sort of decentralized governance models are available. The book speaks about some of those and is willing to share with all of us. So that thank you very much. And we can pick up some ideas from that. Now I request Dr. Sneha to share our experience of civil society engagement as a mechanism to enhance transparency, reduce corruption, targeting funding for the right causes, and greater transparency in service delivery. Over to you, Dr. Sneha. Time is a bit concerned, but I'm sure you will manage. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'll try my best to take very little time and complete this. You able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm bringing to you two case studies. One is from the Hyderabad Metro Water Supply and Sewerage Board. And then also I will tell how we have transferred this to the Warangal, where we are implementing this citywide inclusive sanitation program.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Can you please maximize it, like at the corner one, settings button?
1 second. Maybe I will try to.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to
It's
do
not
this
in a full
corner.
screen, ma'am.
Okay, let me just see this. Able to see now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, right. So basically, I'm talking about the city of Hyderabad, where 13.17 lakh connections are there. About 1.3 crore population is there, where they are supplying about 562 million gallons of MGD of water. And they almost, the city is supplying about 150 LPCD water for every household with WHO standards. In fact, the latest survey has indicated that Hyderabad is the second best city in terms of water quality next to Mumbai. So they are in the state of self-sufficient city, but unfortunately, the unaccounted water or the non-revenue water is about 40%. So that is of that water that is supplied, about 20 NGD water. That is 5% of that 40%. The estimations have revealed that it is wasted every day at customer premises and through leakages and all that. And this 5% of water could suffice for about 6 lakh people's water needs. So what we watched over the period of time, the officials and everybody thought through, and then we thought that bringing citizen participation and accountability could be one of the mechanisms to reduce this process. So towards that, one program called Water Leadership and Conservation has been initiated. This is basically to nurture the responsible citizenry and bring their voluntary action to conserve the water, and then to also ensure that the recycled water is being reused, and then there is a rainwater harvesting that can take place. And then this particular initiative was targeted bringing the citizens into the mainstream of improving the service delivery of HMWSSB. So what the citizen had to do is they just had to enroll themselves in an online app where they just have to indicate the number of hours and then in which days of the week that they are preferring to give this voluntary action, and then the area also they can support. And in each of these areas, there is a particular NGO that is being there who can support these volunteers to take them to the area where they can do this kind of awareness program, where they can create this awareness, where they can educate the people on the conservation of the water. So as process of this, we started auditing the houses for water use efficiency. I'm giving you one example from Kailas Nagar, where the RWA members, SHG members, and the water board members, and then the volunteers, senior citizen clubs, youth organizations, employee associations, these are all the people who had enrolled themselves as walk volunteers, and they have been formed as a group, and then they have gone to the ward, and then they started looking at what's happening to the water. And this is how the water wastage scenario, everywhere the water being used for the water which is coming, the treated water, which is costing about 45 rupees to the HMW SSB, is being used for these kind of unproductive uses, which was very, very painful. In fact, a field experience of me along with some of the HMW SSB officials during one of these visits, there were almost 1.5 kilometer road that the water was flowing. So we tracked the road, and at the end of almost 1.5 kilometer, we saw a family. Basically, it's a slopy road. So a family was giving bath to their dog with this water which is being supplied, which has been costed them at the 45 rupees per kiloliter. So that's the kind of, I mean, of course, having pets and taking care of them, all that is fine, but do you really realize the value of the water? This is where the education started. And then we started, the volunteer team started branding the houses. Wherever the houses where the water is being wasted, they have been branded as red color houses. Where there is minimal water use wastage, that's orange color. And then where there is water that is being really utilized very judiciously, they have given a green color. And then the houses which had rainwater harvesting, that have those houses have been given blue color codes. So this is what the situation when we entered into the colony, where there were so many number of houses which were in the red color. That means so much of wastage of water was happening. And then slowly the volunteers, week by week, through every visit, the red color houses started coming down, and at the end of the third or fourth visit, almost all of them have becoming green color. So a continued effort of awareness and continued effort of making the citizens responsible for their own water usage. A sheet gives you the calculation of how much water is being saved. I'm sure the numbers are not very clear, but then definitely the water saving was clearly there through these calculations. And then this is one colony, but we were doing similar kind of a thing with almost 10,000 volunteers across the city, which was really giving a very positive result. And then at this hour, COVID happened, and then unfortunately we could not carry forward this initiative. However, the same initiative we have taken to the, after me shifting from that role and joined ASCI, similar effort has been replicated in Warangal, where we had, this is the process where we had the first consultation with the civil society meeting, civil society organizations, where the influential people in the city, some of the retired employees, and some of the people from Walkers Association, people from, we did not even know that there were bird watching clubs in that city. There were clubs which are, there is a society, the Organ Donation Society. So there are so many different kinds of civil society organizations were there. Their main interest was something else, but the common agenda was that to make the city a happier city, a city with good environment, clean environment. So everybody shared that kind of an agenda. So what we did is we had this consultation meeting with civil society organization. Then we took them to the fecal sludge treatment plant. Till we had taken all these CSO members to this FSTP, they did not even know that the FSTP existed in their city, and there is something called the fecal sludge that had to be treated. And then they did not even realize where the septic tanks were going, and then where they are putting this fecal sludge into. So that was the first time where they realized the importance of, why the desludging vehicles have to be tracked, and then the importance of even desludging their septic tanks, which they have not done in the last 10-15 years. So that was the really eye-opening situation for them, because this was seeing and believing of the concept. And then we had the next meeting after the visit with all these civil society organizations and the citizen representatives. That's when they realized, and then they said, okay, let's do a collective action. That's when they are also convinced that yes, this is something, this agenda is also very important to us. Let us do the activity called desludging, and let us try to take this forward, was their initial thing. After that, we started with 30, and then we realized that there are many more organizations in the Warangal who can be part of this. That is when we started profiling all the existing RWAs, colony associations, and the youth clubs as sanitation champions. And then there was an ad hoc committee that has become a core team to run this agenda of sanitation. And then they've also prepared a booklet for educating their peers or educating their other citizens. Then they, one of the colony association president among this core team said, okay, let's do it in my colony and see what is the experience. And then immediately they've organized a meeting in their colony, and then they said, okay, they had a 100 house colony. They said, okay, let's go for all 100% desludging of our colony. So they exactly took 3 months. In the first month, about 25% of the people have done it with the initial round of awareness and initial round of these things. And then before they went to it, they also had a meeting with all the desludging operators and say, look, and negotiated for the price. We have got 100 households. So can we do, can you reduce our price a little bit? And then so that you have the business of these 100 people. So they convinced even the desludging operators, and then they started this operation. After the first 5 or 6 houses, one of the member got a doubt with this guy is taking this sludge from our house, but where exactly is it dumped? So they started, and then they called the FSTP operators, because by now they know all the operations that happen in the fecal sludge management. So they called the operator with this truck number. Has it come to your FSTP? Then the FSTP operator said that we did not get it. That's when they said, okay, there is something we have to do about it. So the next step was, they said that unless the FSTP operator gives you a receipt that you have put the sludge into the FSTP, then only we give you the payment. So that has become another initiative. So the FSTP operator had to give the receipt for the desludging operator to get the payment. That's how the whole system was established, and citizens were taking these initiatives, which was the beauty of the whole thing. And then the core team subsequently, after this experience of Adarsh Nagar, they said, okay, we have to do for the entire Warangal, then how do we do it? So the core team also developed a detailed TOR, and then the collective platform was launched, where the mayor was there and all of us were there. And then after launching this, they have also made the entire IEC operations in every colony. And then this is again the pictures from that Adarsh colony that I was talking about. And then this is how desludging is happening. After that, as subsequent to this, they also thought, okay, desludging operations are one thing, but we also need to look at sanitation on the other component. Like, what about the public toilet? What about the door-to-door waste collection? What is happening to the ODF, open defecation free status of our city? All these aspects are going on in the way they have to be or not. So they decided that, okay, we will also monitor these things. That's where we facilitated from ASCII, and then another NGO from the grassroots level at Warangal. We came up with a kind of an app where they could have questions about these public toilets, and then the youth volunteers and the forum members administered these social auditing tools. And then once the data has come, this is how the number of public toilets, if you see on the left side, the graph shows that whether any of these toilets were free from water stagnation, about 22 of them were not. Similarly, 26 of them had wetness. And then so the scorecards were developed for each of these things, and I'm giving you, this is about the public toilet. The beauty of these cards is the recommendations include not only for the municipal corporation, but also to the citizens or the civil society. They say that please ensure that our toilets should be given these kind of provisions, or the door-to-door waste collection should have these kind of things, and the vehicle should be given a GPS system to track whether they are coming, and then you should also ensure that they collect the waste from each house and all that. But the citizens said, yes, we also give our responsibility, that we ensure that we monitor the public toilet. We also ensure that we give the source, we give the waste to the waste collectors. So there was a responsibility of citizens, and then there is expected responsibility from the GWMC also. So this is how the social auditing tools also were demonstrated, and this is all for the colony which has done the desludging. There were so many clots to the colony. So after seeing this applause, many other colony presidents also started coming. Come on, we also do it like Adarsh Colony. We will also start these kind of operations. So bringing that citizen responsibility and accountability was one of the things, and this process has triggered towards that. So this is from my side, and then it's open for questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So, friends, you heard about another method, I think, which Dr. Sitaram and also others have introduced, social audit. This is actually social audit in action in one of the cities where the civil society members have come together and created a platform. It's called a civil society platform, not only for making the system accountable, but also making citizens also responsible in the whole process. So there is a citizen charter which is outlined by the city corporation, but there's also an individual charter outlined by the civil society organizations about their commitment towards the city in terms of behavior, in terms of certain individual responsibilities that they have towards sanitation. So I think these are some very powerful examples that we are trying to scale up for strengthening the core component of the citywide inclusive sanitation 2x3 matrix, which is the accountability. So today, the discussion was all about strengthening the accountability for improving sanitation performance. Thank you very much. Town hall meetings, as Nasir Saab was mentioning about, is another great example which works very well in developing economies. We have seen ourselves in the city of Hyderabad where town hall concept is working very well. Thank you very much for alerting us. So the floor is open for a few more questions. We have exceeded by 4 minutes now. Any comments, any observations? Any comments in the chat box which I missed out?
No, sir, no.
Yeah. So, Shahnaz Sitsa, would you like to speak about the town hall meeting that you were talking about? How town hall meetings are really strengthening in your case?
Yes, we are basically working on a very pilot project, citizen engagement for the promotion of sanitation. And basically, this municipality manager, like the city mayors, the TMO, Tahsil municipal administrator, they are from the government, representing the government agencies, and some other decision makers. We invite them, and the citizen is basically sitting in the front, and they are discussing the sanitation and drainage and sewer problem, and at the even at the city manager, they basically solve the problem. The small scale problems solve automatically, even within the town hall. But the long problem, like some drainage or sewerage or block, or some communities, isolated communities, are not providing services, so they are referred to the city manager. And in my personal views, we have small cities comparing to the Indian cities. So in small cities, this town hall meetings works very better. And the city manager even listen the people, their problems, their issues, and issues directive, like the government have the procedure, issue director on the spot. So it's in some time it's worked very good, and sometimes it's works not very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Sometimes the town hall meetings can also be done virtually. Nowadays, I have come across ward level conversations happening on a digital mode. I think that's also another model for enhancing accountability. The floor is open for any other observations, comments based on the presentations that we had with Dr. Clement and Dr. Sitaram and others. Any comments?
So this budget formulation, like the same system we have, like the Indian, the budget proposal normally develop demand starting from February to March, because we have the June is the financial the year last month, and from July the next year will start. So normally the government department presented their budget in their respective cities during the month of June. So I think budget is very crucial, and I think involvement of citizen in budget proposal is very crucial if we want to really implement the CVS in a small city and even in the municipality area.
So Dr. Sitaram, you have seen participatory budgeting systems in multiple geographies. In addition to the book that came up where probably some reference was made on the participatory budgeting, from your wider experience as ADB and other experiences, you have seen from Brazil and many other contexts. Even in, I think, Philippines, a lot of participatory budgeting process has started. So what Shahnaz Issap is saying is that engaging citizens in budgeting process is super important. Do you have any comments or observations on that?
Certainly. Proposal for increasing the budget is always difficult because governments are actually having no money. They are always in a deficit budget, right? So when you say I want to have budget, it's only you can only give what you have. So that's why I have been suggesting that we need to look at performance where people are willing to pay. The example in the Dumaguete was an example where they did not rely on money to be given by a national government to the provincial government or from international organizations to the, so it's not a project based, it is a self motivated initiative. Sooner we go in that direction, better it will be. And to get that action done, we can have some demonstration projects where willing people, community who are able to give in kind, pay for services, and are able to share the work, that mobilization will be very important. This will make the budgeting process smoother and better. But if they have budget, prioritizing for sanitation requires political and government leadership, because the money that you have, very little money, which one gives higher priority? Right now, sanitation does not get the first or the top priority. It is lower in the pecking order. This training program is all about understanding why we should improve the priority for sanitation. We talking among ourselves is not adequate. Are we able to talk to the people who make decisions on money in that and convince them why it is important? That was what I tried to share, and show them that it works, that if you really pay for it and if you prioritize it, it will have much bigger benefit. That was the example from Dumaguete. So these are a sequence of things that we need to do when we get the citizens engaged, because it is a political responsibility as well. When political leaders make the decisions, when governments are able to prioritize sanitation in their budget, especially the minimum or very low budget. I hope this is helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sitaram. If there are no other questions, I would like to thank all the participants, all the speakers in particular, all the participants for stretching beyond the due time. Today's conversation has given us some food for thought. We learned about some tools like participatory budgeting, social audit tools, We learned about standardization, third-party audits. These are all data transparency. These are all the tools that are deployed by cities and communities for improving the service delivery and making the regulatory and policy systems work for the benefit of citizens. So that's the whole purpose of today's discussion. We will get a copy of the soft copy of the book soon, and then there are many more ideas and tools that are being that you will find in the book that Dr. Sitaram mentioned about. Thank you very much once again, and I see Hashimoto-san joining the session. Thank you, sir, for joining, and I wish you happy evening. And then we will see you, Sneha. Sashipriya, when are we meeting again? Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, sir, we have an action plan development.
Yeah, so tomorrow we will catch up with the action plan preparation and development and sharing of presentations. It's a bit heavy load for you, but I'm sure you are enjoying. Thank you very much all for taking.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.